there's like a something like story or whatever. Whether we're talking about story or not, within art, it's like if you make something that only pertains to you and your experience, that seems kind of useless in a way to me. And there seems to be something useless about saying something so generic that it applies to literally everybody. That also seems a bit wasteful and useless to me as far as when I try to think about what art speaks to me. And it's usually something that's like a balance of those two things where it comes from some meaningful deep place in a person where they discovered something that intrigued them, and when they shared it with the rest of the world said, yeah, that's kind of intriguing. Like that's to me the sweet spot of art. Some like a story that the result of which is I breathe oxygen. That's like too generic and too universal to be what I would consider creative or artistic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I look for that sweet spot. Um, but I keep going back to your skill set, I guess, or your what intrigues you most, just because I guess I just want to know more about it because I know what all of that feels like within language. I guess that's what it comes down to is like lyric writing and melody singing. That's the language that I speak most dominantly. It's my first language in music, if you will. But uh, I don't know. I don't quite know how somebody enters into the world of like pedals and guitars and woods and sustain and all these things and learns that language. It's still just, it's to me like hearing my grandmother speak Spanish. I just don't understand it.
Mm. Well, I think, obviously a lot of these things are just or natural proclivities or something, right? And what things we're drawn to. I've always, and I say always, I mean like, from the time when you're really getting into music and stuff. So I started playing guitar when I was 12 and a half. I always listened to music and stuff as a kid, of course, but so it's around that time, some like probably a year to 2 years before that, we're really like listening to music. But I guess for whatever reason, I've always been super receptive to the sound of something. Again, like some people might not care, but like they're focused on like, oh, that I like singing that song. That's a good melody, or like these lyrics, or oh, that's a cool riff. I've always, I've been interested in how something sounds, or why does that sound like this and this sound like that, and why does that record sound so much different than that? And that's why, in the '90s, like a teenager, was very receptive to stuff like Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream, because like it didn't sound like the other grunge or alternative records. It had this like lush, like elaborate, sound. There was something different going on there. And then you learn, oh, well, that was influenced by this album called Loveless that came out a couple years before by My Bloody Valentine. And then that like just blows your brain apart if you're open to that sort of thing, because that thing is all about how it sounds. And that just give me a whole new approach. And then like, I learned about like Sonic Youth, and I'm like, oh, they're doing all this discordant stuff and alternate tunings, and this doesn't sound regular, but like yet there's melodies in there, but the melodies are not where your head would normally go. So it's a combination of like, I feel like I've always been seeking those things, but then also like those things have always spoke truest to me. And like when sound overwhelms you, it's something I've just always liked. That's what makes my like the hairs raise up at concerts. And it started when I was like a teenager, just like when you feel like washed away in the sound, when it envelops you. Yes, volume and tone, just like it's almost like a spiritual thing for me. That's when music gets like becomes like transcended or something. And so I've always tried to like tap into that, I guess.
Man, that is, it's making me think about things. Like, isn't it crazy that a song or a melody can have, I guess, transcendent, I guess that's the word. It like I think of there's this story of when the Berlin Wall came down, and like they did like a Beethoven concert, like Beethoven's ninth maybe or something, and the fact that we can find pieces of music throughout history that absolutely embody what triumph sounds like, or absolutely embody what despair sound like or whatever. There's human emotions that somehow can be organized mathematically through melodies and stuff. And I can't even wrap my head around that. I can't wrap my head around how one discovers those melodies. But is that, when you're talking about overwhelmed by music, is that kind of the territory you're talking about?
Yeah, that is the territory. Well, because it takes you to another place, and it might be specific, or it when music makes you leave your own head. That's, as a listener and as a participant, I think those are the not pinnacles, but like that's a point I'm wanting to reach. It's like if I'm watching your band or listening to your record, and like I forget anything exists, anything else exists, like you did the thing, you did the trick.
Mm.
And if I'm playing and I forget about time and reality, and all the worries of the world, and all that, then playing music is doing the thing. And it's funny because I don't know if it's funny or not, but I'm really, and maybe this is why music is like this for me. I don't want to say I'm particular, but I make a lot of lists. I'm a journalist. I'm very specific about a whole lot of things in my life, and I'm super detail oriented. And there's definitely a level of detail oriented to this. So I'm not saying that's not there, but it's one of the only places where like I do just like let things happen and be okay with that, rather than trying to really control everything that's going on, I guess.
It's a kind of catharsis for you in a way.
I guess, yeah, right. I guess so, yeah. And that's why too, and I think it maybe always has been, and everyone in his life has different paths, and we all know plenty of people who like, oh, it was great, yeah, there used to be all those bands in high school, then they stopped playing, or like, oh yeah, they're great. There's a million, and it's not to shame anyone. There's a million reasons to stop playing music or take a break or whatever. But like, I literally have to and will until I die. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's just, and that's not just some badge of honor. It's just the way it is. It's like, this is the thing I have to do to interact with in the world in a different way that sort of pushes me through everything else I'm doing in life. I feel like even when I take the breaks, it's still like part of it in some way,